And hello, this is Walter Bosley of the Walter Bosley channel. And yes, welcome to the new, I guess we'd say, um, but more like additional live stream per week. The regular primary live stream is still on Wednesdays, but I wanted to, you know, kind of be present more often than just once a week. In the live chat right now, we have Oregon Music Fan. Welcome, Oregon Music Fan, who's tearing one says, I'm having to tear myself away from the dark journalist live stream. It can be tough, I know, because there's some good information over that way. But I pay attention to what my peers are talking about. And rest assured, hello, Heather Franklin. Rest assured that I make an effort to talk about something else, so that it doesn't serve to be competing with the same topic at the same time. Because if you watch one live, you can always go back and watch the other one recorded, and you get a different topic as well. So Johnny Side's here. Brian Remendini, Frontier Studies also as well. Okay, well, as you can see, tonight's topic, I'm kicking off this Friday night extra live stream with one of my favorite topics, Trans-Temporal Explorations. And it's appropriate because I had one of my classic, really weird experiences yesterday with trans-temporal objects, you might say, right? And for me, a lot of things that I'm interested in, a lot of this phenomena that we talk about, I don't do that. It has to do with time and space phenomena. I think time and space technology, if you will, has a lot to do with explaining a fair enough portion of the UFO mystery to be highly intriguing, I think. And let's see. Written Dreams is here. Okay, all right. So now you guys know, if you're new here to the Walter Bosley channel, time and space phenomena are a favorite topic of mine, obviously, as I said, and have been for a long time. And you know that I'm intrigued with the idea of using the human mind as a means of traveling through time and space. I think that's possible. You guys know that if you're familiar here at the channel, if you're new, welcome aboard. You guys know that in particular, right? Awkward diction, even when I'm talking. I think that we are able to do this. What's the word? Not willingly, but we're able to do this after we, passed on from the body in a particular life. When you die, I think whatever that state is, wherever we are after the body dies, I think that's definitely a point at which we can travel through time and space. Now, remember, I said, I think, okay? A lot of people like to say, well, I believe. I like the word think better than believe. My late friend, Kevin Smith, not the famous movie director. Many of you will remember Kevin Smith, who passed away in 2013, I think it was. He used to say that, and I like that. He said he didn't like to say, I believe. I'd rather say, I think this or I think that. Now, here's the thing. None of us here can say with certainty that we know exactly really what happens to us after the body dies. Okay? It is the great mystery, right? Some people call it the undiscovered country, right? Um, there is evidence that we cease to exist. Some would say there is evidence that we go on in some form. Um, I think that we go on in some form because, they say we are spiritual beings having a what, physical experience? Is that it? A material experience. And I think who we really are when we say, "Who am I? Who are you? Who's this person?" It's that thing which we popularly call our consciousness these days. That is who we really are. And, I think the personality stays the same throughout multiple lives. Well, first of all, if you're new to the Walter Bosley channel, there's my camera. I'm so used to the camera being up there, and I just kind of wander around as I'm talking. I personally think reincarnation is a real thing. Now, the exact details of it or the process or interpretation, I leave that up to you and others. But I do think we live multiple lives. Now, our friend Joseph Farrell has proposed a very interesting interpretation of reincarnation in that it is kind of an us, but it's not exactly us, right? So it's kind of that multiple realities. What's the word I'm going for? The many multiple alternative dimensions, so to speak, right? It's kind of an alternate us. It's a really close facsimile that, from my understanding of how he described it, it is a successive thing. And that's a very interesting way to explain it. I'm still not entirely convinced that we either can return in, of course, successive other lives, or as I have become presently convinced, I like to say presently convinced, that we can repeat a given life. Yeah, this is what I think. I think that look at your life now, when that ends, here's what I propose. Here's my hypothesis. I think we come to a location, a spot, a point at which we are given perhaps a choice. The choice could be to go back and relive all or part of the life that just ended, or we can stay put, just continue on into that other world, that other dimension we go to when the body dies, or go into the future, continue on to the next life, so to speak, if you want to put it that way. And it basically, it's a three-road triple intersection of possibilities, and you get to choose. I think it's my hypothesis. I personally have evidence in my life that convinces me that I chose to relive this one. Now, that can explain things like deja vu, or that sense of, I remember the first time I went to Germany was in March of 1997. I had never been to Germany. And I went to this little town called Rudesheim, and I was walking around in the vineyards up there. If you've seen the movie, it's an Elvis movie. I think it's GI Blues, if I'm not mistaken. Elvis goes to this village and he rides the little cable bucket car that goes up to the monument on the top of the hill. And, it's still there. You can ride it. You pick it up in the village of Rudesheim and you go up there. I think it might be the movie he did with, I think Juliet Prowse is the actress dancer who rides that with him. Anyway, I'm walking around there, and I turn a corner on one of the pathways, and I thought, I've been here before. Now, yeah, my skeptical side of my mind that says, okay, you got to question even your own stuff. I went back and watched the Elvis movie for the scenes where he goes to this place and rides the bucket ride, and I didn't see anything depicted in the film that matched the area that I had experienced, because I had to consider that. See, even when you have a pet hypothesis, especially when you have a pet hypothesis, things that you think might be very real, you need to question yourself harshly. Okay. You really need to not take your own preferences for granted. That, oh, well, okay, this must be real because that's what I want it to be. So it checked out, but that's just one example, for instance, Bogota, Colombia. I experienced going to a place in Bogota, which, and now remember, my trips to Bogota were all in 2003. But in 1981, I had this incredibly vivid dream, which has to do with time and space phenomena, because my mentor told me that because this dream I had was incredibly vivid, I mean, just intensely vivid. Okay. Singularly, and I have vivid dreams, singularly, the most vivid dream I think I've ever had. At least one of the top three, because there's been a couple others that blew my mind. Anyway, this dream, over the course of the following 20 years or so, parts of it would come true. I would find myself in the place in that dream, a place I hadn't been before. In Bogota, this street in Bogota that I was on, same thing. And it when it happens. It hits you. Whoa, okay, this is the place in the dream. Now that's time and space phenomenon, because what was I doing dreaming that in January of 1981? And then 22 years later, there I am on that street. Now, my mentor told me that dream was affiliated with something I had done. He wouldn't tell me what it was. He said I would figure it out. But he said that I was shown several years ahead of my own life. Very, very interesting thing to be told. Now, whether it's true or not, whether it was bullshit I was being told at the time, I have to wonder. But I had been telling him about this after a decade of my life in which the scenes in the dream, the events in the dream, had been coming true. I mean, the years that I never talked to anyone about the strange phenomena that I was experiencing. There was a part of that dream, for instance, remember I had the dream in 81, and in 84, the book The Talisman by Stephen King and Peter Straub came out. And I remember I was in my dorm room at San Diego State. I had gotten a copy of that book. I wasn't very far into it. I got to the part where Jack jumps into the territories. If you haven't read the book, check it out. And he looks out across this landscape, and there's a specific thing that happens on the landscape that has to do with some wooden towers and men with wing contraptions that they made, and jumping off this and flying. And I remember that I was startled It frightened me. I felt slightly nauseous. I just threw the book halfway across the room. I had to get out of the room and go out and breathe fresh air. I didn't understand why it was happening, but all I could remember, all I could think about was the description in the book in that scene was exactly what I had seen in the dream a few years before. Exactly. And that book did not come out until a couple of years or more after I'd had that dream. And then to really add to it, in 2013, my first trip up to Sonora, California, between Merced and Snelling, or Snelling and Jamestown, I drove through that very landscape. Only that time it didn't freak me out. I was kind of in awe. And I'm thinking, what the hell? This is trans-temporal phenomena. Okay. Really. Because the dream showed me things yet to happen. And that included this segment in this book that I would read. But, I wondered, what was Straub and King's source on that scene? I've never looked into it. Which one wrote that particular part? I don't know. Were either one of them familiar with Tuolumne County? I don't know. Or specifically men who build strange flying contraptions, which we know Sonora is associated with. But I came to develop various hypotheses. I knew it wasn't, I've never bought that it was, oh God, I hate to say the words, abduction. Now, I've been told by friends of mine that it was abduction. I don't buy it. Something just doesn't seem legit about that. What does seem legit to me is some type of phenomena in which consciousness locks into time-space. Okay? Now, let me jump ahead several years. In 2010, I was doing some experiments on the telluric currents that Sechery had identified for me, and specifically with the carousels. Now, you guys recall, I talk about this in Latitude 33, my first nonfiction book, and I've talked about it since then. The suspicion, the hypothesis, that there was a group, small, I don't know how large it might have been, probably small, a group of somebody placing carousels in the late 19th century into the early 20th century, building certain carousels and placing them in spots on the telluric current grid. And this could result in extraordinary phenomena. So I was looking to do some experiments, and Sechery has identified the carousel at Castle Park in Riverside, California. It's an old carousel, and I think it was for a time at Knott's Berry Farm, but it presently has been at Castle Park for several years. And so I went and got my field notebook, and I went to write it. I wrote it several times, doing what I called my observational experiments. And what I encountered, because I wrote it several times, different, it's kind of goofy, you're riding that thing, riding on the back of a duck or a cat or whatever, because as I recall, it is a true carousel. Do you know the difference between a carousel and a merry-go-round? A merry-go-round is all horses. A carousel is the menagerie. It's multiple animals and creatures. Sometimes they mix real world with crypto creatures. Anyway, I rode what's called the bench on a carousel is called a chariot. Excuse me, what? What?
Could you hand me my coat?
Oh.
Sorry.
There you go. The bench on a carousel or a merry-go-round is called a chariot. And the idea is that all the animals, be they horses or the menagerie of animals, they're pulling you on the chariot. All my life, I never knew. I just thought that was the bench they put on there for, your parents or grandparents, whoever, to ride. And no, it's supposed to represent a chariot that they're pulling you around in circles. So anyway, I rode the chariot. I rode a few of the animals. I would ride eyes open. I would ride eyes closed. And it was during the eyes closed times that I experienced the phenomena. What was the phenomena? The first thing was a very strong fragrance of salt water in the air. Yeah, you might think, oh, he dreamed about the beach, the ocean, the coast, because he lives in California. Maybe he picked up the marine layer. Okay, I'll get back to that. I was picking up the strong scent of this, salt water in the air. And then I had a visual. The visual was a classic wooden boardwalk with particular wooden buildings. I can see them now in my head. Particular wooden buildings. Okay. And I was standing there on this boardwalk, and I could sense people. I could hear people. That could have been the people at the park I was in. But on this boardwalk, I saw this little girl about 3 or 4 years old. And she had green rotting teeth. Now, you got to remember, I did the subsequent research. In those days in dentistry, a lot of times they would just let children's teeth rot out of their heads. And because of various reasons, to see a kid with nasty green teeth was not uncommon. Now, even with the sense of these other people around, this little girl is standing there. She stops and she looks right at me. Okay. She noticed me and smiled. And I got this weird feeling, opened my eyes, and I was, back on the carousel and, my time. Not that I had left the carousel, but I noted that specifically. Now, what was interesting about that is in folklore, there's this figure named Jenny Greenteeth. She's kind of like a siren of bogs and swamps, and she has jagged green teeth. And, she's like a child, and she's not the best character. She can grab you and abduct you and pull you under the water and to your doom. So I thought that was interesting because I was seeing behind her water, but I wasn't seeing, it wasn't the ocean. In fact, the terrain was spare, hilly, in the distance to one side. But yeah, it wasn't any beach or coastal town or park that I'd ever recognized going. But then I was reading an article on another subject entirely, and I learned about the Saltaire Pavilion in Salt Lake. And so I looked up photos. Oh, and by the girl's clothing and what I could tell, it seemed to be in the early 1900s. Left that part out. Sorry. So I looked up the Salt Air Pavilion between 1890 and 1920, and I saw the boardwalk that I was seeing while I was riding that carousel in Riverside, California. The boardwalk and the buildings, and it's how it looked in 1910. So, for all intents and purposes, I was looking at the boardwalk at the Salt Air Pavilion in 1910. That would explain also the air that I was smelling. Now, here's how time phenomena can work synchronistically. Anybody who's lived in Southern California will tell you we get the marine layer blow in east, a few times a year. What do I mean by that? You can smell the sea air, okay? The salt water mixing in the air and all that. It could very well have been our Southern California winds blowing in the marine layer from the coast. At the time that I was riding the carousel, it just very likely coincided or possibly coincided with the marine layer blowing in. But between the carousel being placed on the telluric current and the rotation, with the torsion and all that, the spin, the rotation, which is a part of this, the marine layer was triggering. This is hypothesis, folks. If you're new to the Walter Bosley channel, I talk about whatever the hell I want on a speculative, hypothetical level. Okay, just know that the unspoken caveat here is it's hypothesis, it's speculation. I don't tell you that I know this to be a fact for sure. Okay, I'm not one of those kind of guys in this community. But I will talk about my experiences, and I'm not afraid to speculate. I do not apologize to skeptic trolls, okay? Jerk-offs of a certain generation, who just like to piss all over everybody's fun. Anyway, the curious thing about the synchronicitous part is the marine layer, okay, kicking off the olfactory senses, okay, could have served to be the extra kicker to tap me in to the stream, okay, the time, space continuum, whatever, right? Now, Salt Air Pavilion in the mid 20th century, when it was the previous one to the one now, when it was abandoned, dilapidated, what have you, was the location for a movie that has been very influential on my life, and that's the original black and white Carnival of Souls. Now, that film, I subsequently learned, has a lot of Hecate symbolism and synchronicity to that weird case, the Empire of the Wheel issue that I investigated here in San Bernardino, okay, that had happened in 1915. So something, just the elements and pieces of this whole scenario just came together to divert my consciousness onto the part of the stream that would lead me to the Salt Air Pavilion and, a reconsideration, a deeper contemplation or rumination on the synchronicities between that film and that place and what happened in San Bernardino in 1915. Okay. And location and themes in the movie aren't the only thing. We know Utah, of course, is a Mormon state, right? Well, the Mormons were a major player in the non-native settlement of San Bernardino, California. All right. So there's another interesting synchronicity that bore out. But that was one of my most interesting experiences with the consciousness tapping into the time-space continuum. Was I actually looking at 1910 on the boardwalk at the Saltaire Pavilion? Was that kid, just someone who happened to notice me? Or was I in some other ether, some, place in my head where the synchronicities thrive, where the synchronicities are so manifested that it is like another dimension? I don't know for sure. I'm not going to tell you that I know for sure. I know what I think. I know what I like to think. So anyway, let me jump over to one of my, again, one of my favorite topics in this greater subject of time-space phenomena is the element of human desire, human will. Now, you guys have heard me talk about it before. I think there were two authors of the same generation who had learned something about time-space phenomena and human movement through these phenomena. And that would be Jack Finney and Richard Matheson. Finney, of course, was the author of Time and Again, a great time travel novel if you've never read it. And Richard Matheson is the author of the more well-known Somewhere in Time. Of course, I have referred to and discussed the Sessory analysis, in-depth analysis of the Matheson story, the novel, but mostly the film. Matheson had a hand in writing the film. He was also the author of the novel. And it is the opinion of Sesh and I, as I've said before in previous episodes, that Matheson had learned something. He knew something about moving through time and space. He and Finney were contemporaries. Finney published his novel in 1970, Time and Again, 1970. And Matheson first released Somewhere in Time in 1975. Now, it was originally titled Bid Time Return, drawing from Shakespeare. But the film was titled Somewhere in Time, and it became so popular that they started publishing the novel in conjunction with the film under that title and have ever since. In the discussions that I've had before here on the Finney-Matheson method of time travel, I'll call it, which, by the way, was not even the first instance in literature of moving through time and space with the will. I'm doing a brain dump on it right now as to what that other one was. I've mentioned it before, but the Finney and Matheson examples are so compelling. Here's an interesting thing about Finney's novel. It is rumored that the earliest beginnings of the remote viewing pursuit of the U.S. military, the U.S. Army, started in the late 60s. Now, what we know of the actual program, I think they've got the origin sometime in the 70s or 80s. But there is also talk that the pursuit of this was in the late 60s. In other words, preceded Finney's novel. Now, here's what's interesting. In Finney's novel, The main character, Cy, isn't that cute? Cy, get it? Short for Sydney, but Cy. Fine. He's a civilian who's recruited by an Army intelligence officer to join this classified group. And in Finney's novel, they're set up in a warehouse. And there are these, I forget what they call them in the context of the novel right now, but the individuals on this team that are part of this program, they each have their own little cubicle, more like an apartment size, a studio apartment size space. And that space is decorated in the trappings of the target era in which that individual is supposed to be using the power of the mind to travel through time and space. Like in Somewhere in Time, when Richard Collier, the main character, goes and buys the suit from the early 1900s and gets the money, the shoes. He's staying in a place that existed. You get the idea. Finney did that 5 years before with Time and Again. And they sit there in this space and they live in this space and focus and concentrate until they can literally propel their consciousness, embody, it's science fiction, back in time to that target zone. And of course, Finney's character, Cy, is able to do this with greater ease than others. But for all the world, it sounds like the remote viewing program, a secretive group doing this mind across time and space. Of course, in remote viewing, we're told they were looking across space and learned they could do this through time. But I asked the question, what did Finney know and when did he know it? Did he know someone in the Army who told him about what remote viewers were doing and the fact that they were able to see across time and space? Very intriguing thought, right? Was Finney actually writing about the RV program in 1970? Who authorized that, I wonder? Was it a byproduct of MK Ultra? It sounds like something Sidney Gottlieb certainly would have wanted to do. So then we have to jump to, the idea of looking through time and space. Okay, looking is one thing, going is another. Now, Matheson, what he and Finney, but Matheson's expression is much more intense of this. What they present is the idea of what I call the grappling hook. What is a grappling hook, right? It's a hook on a line. You want to get from point A to point B, and you got to throw this grappling hook up there and get it to hook on something firmly enough so that you can pull yourself by that line to where the hook is, right? So I use that metaphor. What Matheson really, really exemplified even more intensely than Finney does in his novel is the fact that human desire to travel through time, the power, the will needs a line, a grappling hook in the target time. It needs a grappling hook if you're going into the past, specifically where you want to go, time and space. Okay, so that desire represents that grappling hook in that line, because human emotion is intense, right? And I think what Matheson is suggesting is with intense desire, you launch your grappling hook, you successfully hook onto something, and with that power, you pull yourself, mind, and in the case of Matheson's story, mind and body, into the past. Now, I think that you can do this with your consciousness. You don't need to do this with your body. And what the grappling hook does is it connects to the body you're jumping into. This is what I think. Now, suppose you live to a certain number of years. Let's say you live to 71 years old. Okay. You die in the body, and you reach this intersection I spoke of several minutes back, where you have the choice to stay in that realm where you go after you die, or to go to the future, okay, the next life, the next experience, whatever. Or you return to the past. Now, it's a little easier, I think, to sink that hook, that grappling hook, into your own self in the past. But I think I suggest, let's say age, and, because there's numerology and everything. You're 71 when you die. I think your grappling hook for going backwards is your 17-year-old self. Let's say you do this successfully. You open your eyes, and I'm going to say, let's say it's easier that you're able to jump back into your past self when you're younger, while that body's asleep, right? Just think of the things that come to us in dreams. So you died at 71, you jump back into your 17-year-old body. What if that's the numerology of it? And of course, when you wake up, you might lift your hand up and say, whoa, is that my hand? Not because it's not your hand. It's the hand you haven't seen in decades. It's your younger hand. Because what? You successfully jumped back into your younger self to relive that life. This is something that I think. Oh, by the way, I'm egalitarian about this stuff. I have colleagues that say, no, Walter, I know you like to be fair and stuff. Not everybody can do this. I think every human being is capable of doing this, okay? If you can do it, if you've done it, you're not special, okay? You and yourself are not special. You're not a prophet, okay? You're not an uber being, all right? You've just figured out something that we're all capable of doing. So I say that because I think I had this experience. And I've had other things along my research and investigations and looking into things that have provided a form of confirmation, but it's nothing I could prove in a laboratory setting or anything like that. So you don't have to even listen to me talk about it if you don't want to. I'm not that. I don't feel a compulsion to be believed. In fact, the most extraordinary things I personally ever encountered, the more extraordinary, the less I care if anyone believes me or not. Really, I finally crossed that Rubicon where it's, it really doesn't matter if other people, believe me or not. Anyway, that's where I stand on that. So I think that's one way. Okay. The consciousness. I think that is the easiest, most natural way to travel through time and space. Now you say, but Walter, this traveling through the past, okay, that happened, maybe, but this traveling to the future, because ostensibly the future hasn't happened yet. Only from our linear perspective has it not happened. See, as we live, here's what I think. As we live, and I'm not the only one, as we live our lives, we live them second after second, minute after minute, hour after hour, right in a linear fashion, from A to Z, boom, 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 in a line. But that doesn't mean that time, true nature, is linear. That's just how we experience this thing that we humans have agreed to call time. See, there's this thing, time, which is something we haven't even begun to understand. And then there's this measured sequence of events that we also call time. Okay. And that can confuse people. Why is this important? Because of the classic age-old idea that everything's happening at once. Okay. From some perspective that you go to, some place you go to, whatever. And I think it's this place after we die. Okay. Remember, I said the intersection of past, present, and future, where it all comes together. It kind of is happening all at once. And I just think that's one of the extraordinary mysteries that we learn more about after we die. But we experience time in the linear when we're living our lives, but when we're in that other dimension, we can almost go anywhere. So why would you relive a life you've already lived? People have written about that for a long time. To go back maybe and correct mistakes, to go back and experiencing, when you turned right, to go back and instead turn left, right? Or, in the previous one, you married that person. Well, maybe the next one you want to try marrying this person, okay? Or you lived there, but now you want to try living here. There's any number of reasons why someone would want to go back and relive a life they've already lived. But wouldn't that be interesting if that was our only choice? What if that was the only way we could go back in time? Would be if we had a physical anchor in that time. In other words, think about even the Joseph Farrell hypothesis, where you're not the exact you, but you're a version of you. What if I want to add an amendment to Joseph's hypothesis? What if that real, original, primordial, whatever you want to call it, you, that consciousness, what if these other yous are there for you to use as your anchors into any century you've lived where that other you has lived? Okay, if there was a version of you in which you spent a lifetime during the Byzantine Empire, that original you, which is represented by a spiritual, non-material consciousness, whatever, spirit, entity, thing, you're able to use that physical version of you. Okay, really? Interrupting Walter Bosley with a phone call. What if that original you, that is at heart you, the soul you can jump back to your Byzantine Empire body because your grappling hook will reach that because you had a physical presence during that time. Any historical era, the Old West, ancient Greece, the Napoleonic era, the 1920s, what have you, whatever. Okay. Maybe that's the purpose of the multiple you. Maybe Joseph Farrell's right. Maybe there are multiple versions of you, each one of us, alive in all the eras. What if we get to, and this is a little impractical because, we're not all experiencing our lives in the same part of the world, but you get the idea. Take the eras And, it could have been somewhere in Asia during the time of the Roman Empire. You get the idea, wherever it is in the world that you're from, in whatever era. But the multiple versions of each of us could be our anchors, our grappling hook, pitons or whatever, little bolt with a ring so the grappling hook can hook into it. What if those various versions of ourselves are accessible by our original self? Okay. For instance, this Walter Bosley, this physical Walter Bosley, is not the same physical Walter Bosley who, say, in the previous life, possibly apparently died at 61 and jumped back into his 16-year-old self. According to the Joseph Farrell hypothesis, it was impossible for me to jump literally back into that self I had just lived, but I could jump into the alternate dimension, very close facsimile of the physical Walter Bosley, and that's what this physical Walter is. It's the close facsimile of the Walter that I had been. That could explain when, say, for instance, something, let's say you do this and you're like, okay, this is who I am. This is who I was. Okay. At this point, I'll do this and this will happen. And it doesn't happen. You try and try and try and it doesn't happen and something's slightly off. You have to remind yourself, wait a minute. This isn't the exact me I was before. This is a close facsimile. So maybe some of the tabs don't fit in all the slots. Maybe because it's an alternate dimensional, in my case, Walter experience, the original Walter, okay, that is the consciousness, isn't quite fitting into that version of the physical Walter. Okay. And that could explain when things aren't quite what you expected, when things don't quite go what you would call according to plan. I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about this, but I think these kinds of things, I think time-space phenomena can explain a lot of the weirdness that we experience in life. A lot of it. Whether it's the veil between dimensions getting thin and there's, crossover. Whether it's some type of oversight, okay, some type of overseers that police what we do with these abilities, what these activities are. Science fiction is full of stories like that, right? But think about it. The reason science fiction is full of stories like that is because people have been having these strange experiences with this phenomena, and they wonder: is there an intelligence that oversees this, that keeps us within the bounds, within rules, certain rules? I don't know. You see, all we have is our experience with the phenomena and how it manifests itself to us. That can be deja vu. That can be through dreams that come true. we can speculate and hypothesize what's going on in these cases, but none of us can, I don't think any of us can come up with that answer that is necessarily going to convince everyone else or even one other person. That's the beauty of this experience, you see. This is what I love. This is what I see as, a frustration for those with a certainty fetish. There's nothing, there's few people more amusing than an individual with a certainty fetish. Wouldn't you agree? That person that just got to be sure, got to be certain, or it's all bullshit. Wow. To live a life with that perspective, okay, it's not my cup of tea. But the funny thing is, I see a person like that is they are definitely, in my opinion, ignoring the manifestation of certain phenomena in their life. For someone to, and I think what it is they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to handle it. It scares them. Deep inside, it scares them to have an experience that they can't explain in a simple, certain, materialistic way. And I love that. I love to see people encounter something they cannot explain. I love to see people knocked out of their comfort zone with strange phenomena. I love it. Yeah, there's abject terror to it. That's how you learn. That's how you grow beyond this. That said, all this stuff said about, I think we're able to do this after death, to make a choice. Those choices that I've been talking about. But there's still that Van Helsing side of my mind that says there's got to be portals somewhere. There's got to be portals to other dimensions somewhere, right? I think there could very well be. Which then brings us back to that classic science fiction fantasy idea of literally in the physical body while you're alive, traveling through time, jumping through a portal, right? City on the Edge of Forever, like Star Trek. That comes with problems, though. What if you can't get back? Which could, as a lot of people have talked about, explain strange disappearances, right? What if you jump through a portal and you're unable to breathe the air on the other side? What if you jump through a portal and the intelligent beings on the other side are something that consider you food? All these classic what ifs. What if you jump through the portal into an era where everybody's a bunch of paranoid Puritan assholes and they burn you at the stake because you're obviously a witch? All the classic scenarios and cautionary tales as to, gee, maybe, stay put in your time. It's all interesting. It's all very interesting. Well, I'm about to jump back into doing remote viewing. That's cute. Practicing RV, I guess you'd say. Malia is taking an intense course in it. And so I'm going to be doing monitoring for her. And I'm going to jump back into it because you guys know I had a pretty intense experience with the version I was taught. And that's what led me to the Empire of the Wheel and all my experiences with Hecate and the Juan Cabrillo stuff and just the wild ride that started for me in September of 2007, and really continues in many ways to this day. Well, I'm going to jump back into it, and I'm very specifically going to be dabbling in time phenomena, time and space, time and place, that kind of thing. And I'll talk about it here, of course, because it fits right in with the trans-temporal cosmic discussion that is a running subject here, and so I'll keep you posted on the experiments I'm going to be doing with this. Now, as always, I don't know if they're still up. You'll have to contact C.W. Channer, but a couple years back, he was doing a fantastic series, okay, on the 20-year time loop, okay, and it's very much the Matheson method, okay, and that is what using the past, using nostalgic, the power that nostalgia has on the human consciousness. Now, he specifically focused on music. That's an easy way for you to get your mind in that zone where you can lock in to the period you want to go to. But contact CW, and if his videos aren't up, maybe he'll share them with you, or he'll talk about that again. But it's an excellent method that he hit on there. And it's very much, as I said, in line with Matheson. Now, if you've never read Somewhere in Time, read it. If you've never seen the film, watch it. Okay. And yeah, it's a big romance. La, la, la. He goes back in time because he falls in love with the pretty lady and wants to be with her so bad. La di da. What that is that's symbolic for, because look, romantic love is a huge, major drive in the human psyche, right? What Matheson is saying about this is Elise McKenna doesn't represent a person necessarily so much as she represents the desired goal. Okay. She is that she's at the other end of the grappling hook. Make of that what you will. I know there's a lot of jokesters out there. Anyway, Richard Collier casts his grappling line into the past, and it, you see where it lands. Anyway, I make myself laugh sometimes with my surprisingly naive phrasings until I catch myself. But anyway, I think certainly it's possible for a group, or two or more people to do this in conjunction. Say, for instance, you have a group of 5 people and you all agree you're going to get back into the past and meet up. Okay. Now, if you do it with the method of you can do this when you die, unless you all die in the same, tragic accident, you're going to be making your jump back in time at different points as each of you die, which means you're going to land maybe not exactly where you wanted to land. Okay. But the objective is to all come together. Imagine if there was, some type of intelligence group that could send a team somewhere like that. It's interesting. It's intriguing. It's great for fiction, right? I think like a fiction writer because I write this stuff. Let me, before I go to the live chat, let me tell you about an experience I had yesterday. Malia and I were out doing business, driving around doing errands, and I got what I call signal. And she can tell you, I think it weirded her out. But I was just kind of out of it. I was zoned. Had that, what do they call it, the 1,000-mile stare. And I could tell something was processing, something was coming through. We parked, going to get some coffee, and I said, no, come on. We're going around the corner first. And I just felt compelled. We went right to an antique shop, which I've had some pretty intense experiences at antique shops in the past. And I walked right into the stall, found the stall, vendor stall, with books. And we walked out of there with 4 books loaded with synchronicities to each our lives, our research. It was wild. Really wild. And I've experienced that from time to time. I think all of you certainly are capable of experiencing these things. I am not special. But yeah, we came away with legitimately 4 old books that had synchronicity, relevance, or whatever to specific things that we have researched, that we have experienced. And that's key, the specificity of the connection. So, how do I interpret this? Something was compelling me to go into that antique store and find those books, get those books, obtain them. Was it a third party? Was it knowledge embedded into my psyche, the psyche of my soul, perhaps, for use when I jump back into this physical version of Walter Bosley, to relive the facsimile of the life I had just lived? And did I reach the time, the day, time, and place in which knowledge of those books being there unlocked in my own psyche? And thus I became consciously, oh, yeah, today's the day I got to go get those books. Could I have somehow contrived in the previous living of that life to have these books there for when my consciousness did this for me to go retrieve? I don't know. There are several possibilities that, should be considered. Again, if you're new to the Walter Bosley channel and you don't like speculation or hypothetical discussion, you're in the wrong place. We do that here, but we're honest. I tell you when something's hypothetical. I tell you when I'm speculating. I also tell you I'm not special. I am not the only person in the world who can do this stuff or has experienced, the weird things. I, like you, am just trying to figure this shit out. So that happened yesterday. And 3 books. I'm not going to tell you what the books are yet because, look, it would mean nothing to you. Your experience is out there waiting for you. The book, the object you're supposed to find at your antique store or whatever your experience is going to be, is waiting for you. It matters to you. It's not going to mean much to other people. And I think that's the mistake that we make in our community, is we think that, even though, like, I think everybody's capable of doing things, we think that all strange experiences need to be universalized, need to be shared. Now, I've taken heat from other people in the community. What is it?
Mexican
Yummy. I've taken heat from people in the community when I say that No one who's had experiences, no one is compelled to have to share them with anybody. And I get accused, oh, you're trying to silence people. Me, 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 me. We got a bunch of crybabies like we do in our society in general. In our community, we do have a fair number of crybabies. Me, 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 me. You know, don't tell people they're not compelled to share because we want to hear their stories. We want to compel them to share. And if you say they don't have to, you're just silencing people. You're suppressing people. Bullshit. I'm just telling people you can share. I mean, I don't tell anybody what to do. People can go out there and get center stage and go on all the shows and share every detail of all their experiences. That's fine. But you know what? Don't give people a hard time if they don't want to tell you. Okay? In other words, and I say this with all kindness and love for my fellow man, there's some of you people out there that need to have your own damned experiences. Quit living vicariously through others. Okay? Show some backbone. All right? Have a little courage. Okay? It's your life. It's your life to live. Sounds like a soap opera, but you know, it's true. Go out there, live your own damn life. If you're curious about an experience, yeah, oh, believe me, it's useful to hear other people's stories. You can get valuable information, but you know, at some point, get out there. Stop reading the books. Wait a minute. What did I just say?
No.
Never stop reading the books.
But go on in it.
Yeah, what a dumbass publisher author. Stop reading the books. You guys know what I mean. Go beyond the books. Read. In fact, let me rephrase that. Read all the books. Read them all. Read multiple ones. Buy copies for your friends, particularly at walterbosley.com. But you guys get the idea. At some point, you do have to get out there in the field. Okay? Stop taking other people's word for things. Explore it yourself and give it a fair exploration. Okay. You know, and don't let asshole skeptic materialist trolls, they're usually guys in their 30s and 40s, you know, who have, you know, read a couple of philosophy books and, you know, the old man was shitty to them. So they're all cynical and you guys know the generation I'm talking about. So, you know, society, eventually these guys will age out and pass on and hopefully won't be repeated. But anyway, just ignore those guys. Okay. Anyway, so I'm going to. I welcome everybody to the Friday night live stream. This is I'm still doing the Wednesday live streams. That's the primary one, but I wanted to start having more presence here at the channel, and we thought that doing a second live stream per week wouldn't be a bad idea because it gives me a chance to. To be honest, it's great for scheduling because there's a lot of guests out there. I want to have more guests and they can't always make it on Wednesday afternoon. So you're going to see me have additional guests that, you know, they would love to be on. I've been trying to get them on, but they just can't make it Wednesday afternoon. And then once a week, that gives me 4 shows a month. And so this way I have 8 shows a month so I can have more people on and visit with you guys more. So, okay. Let's go to the live stream. Let's see. We have all sorts of people, and there's Flying Brian, there's Crypto Alchemist, there's Michael Dark. I like that black tie. That's cool. You see that one? Nick Pope. Nick Pope, or a reasonable facsimile of Nick Pope.
Grandmaster UV.
Grandmaster UV.
Do you remember Grandmaster?
No.
He says he's blocked on the channel for some reason. I don't know why. We'll look
Did Grandmaster UV misbehave in the past? Because that's how one gets blocked.
That's not like
Yeah, let's investigate that. Let's explore that. If that's an error, we want to get that cleared up. So, okay, so you guys know how it is here. Remind the newbies so that I don't have to say it 1,000 times. All caps for your comments and questions if you want me to respond or answer your question. If it's not in all caps, I'm going to assume you're having a side conversation.
Flying Brian is having a good night.
Flying Brian remembers a movie we first saw together. I believe, Brian, we saw it at the movie theater. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we saw it at the movie theater that doesn't exist anymore. It's over there in the Cooley Ranch area where you're going up the hill to Grand Terrace, and there's a bunch of motorhome sales places there, RV sales. Remember, there was a movie theater down there. That's where we first saw Star Trek II Wrath of Khan in 1982. Matter of fact, Flying Brian and I saw Star Trek Wrath of Khan in the theater I'm talking about, and also at the Inland Cinema. Not cinema. Cinema would be a cinnamon enema. And we did not get cinnamon enemas. We went to a cinema.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty positive. Now, Brian loves cinnamon enemas. He's told me this for years. Man, what a memory. Yes, Brian, I do. I remember all the different theaters we went to. Brian once...
now you skipped 2 people.
No, I know. I'm going to go back to them. Brian once... I think Brian and Scott once climbed up on the roof of the Orange Cinedomes. One of the many nights we went there to see The Empire Strikes Back in the summer of 1980. So, Philip Blair asks, does time travel mean anything regarding time and space travel? Yeah, because when you're traveling through time, you don't necessarily have to travel through space. You could just stay in the one room, in that one spot, and travel through time in that one spot. But what's the fun in that? Well, any kind of time travel would be fun. But yes, Philip, when I refer to time travel, I'm meaning time and space as well. Michael Dark. Hey, Walter, what do you make of Lynn Buchanan's RV time travel experience within the particle beam? Oh, yes, I do. Yeah, that's some wild stuff. Yeah, I make a lot of that, Michael. Yeah, definitely. Did I?
It fits right into our just fair discussion. That's why we had Lynn on to talk about that.
Yeah, and that was one of the big... Did I do something wrong?
To repeat that thing.
Wait a minute. Because suddenly it's like way down. Anyway.
You might have hit the volume.
Might have hit the what?
The volume.
No.
On the computer.
Oh, did I? No, the volume is still high. Okay, I'll just speak into the microphone. Let me scroll down here. That's correct. I saw that movie. Is that 90? 90 times. The enemas were cherry. Cinnamon cherry. Spicy and sweet. You guys haven't even begun to experience the humor that Brian and I and our close friends have shared for decades. But we're not, we're not different than most weirdos. We did. It was fun. Yeah, we saw The Empire Strikes Back 15 times in one 30-day period because, as Brian will tell you, for 30 days in a row, we went to a midnight movie every night, and we only saw 2 films ever. It was The Empire Strikes Back or The Blues Brothers. We would alternate it. If it was Empire Strikes Back the night before, it was Blues Brothers the next night. We did. That's a fact. Brian will tell you. In fact, Brian and I saw Somewhere in Time together for the first time. We thought, hey, a time travel story and Superman's in it, right? So we go to this thing and we look around, and the only other people in the theater are women, girls and moms with their daughters. And we're thinking, okay, so we put the required like 2 empty seats between us, lest anyone think we were there on a date. And and we realized, oh yeah, this is quite a romantic love story, so. But hey, it's a great time travel story nonetheless. Somewhere in time, there's no shame in a guy loving that movie because it's time travel. It's cool. And Superman, is the star of it, Christopher Reeve. It's kind of like why, thank God for, Jeff Bridges in the 80s and then Matthew McConaughey. Because when you're a guy and you have to watch a chick flick, if it was one of them chick flicks where it was young Bridges or Matthew McConaughey, it was okay. You could handle it. You could handle it because there was a cool dude in the movie doing cool dude manly things in spite of all the softness and romance going on. Against all odds, that's got some of the best Jeff Bridges cinematic moments you'll ever see. So, any more questions or comments?
Old Gaffer put in one.
Oh, here we go. Old Gaffer popped up. I love this, but does it contradict Jesus? I was a naughty boy when younger and he changed my life. I don't think any of what I'm talking about contradicts any of that, because remember, most of what we learn about Jesus and religions and stuff is from who? The priesthood. Okay? These are the professionals of religion who have a huge stake in you believing the particular dogma that they're selling. Now, nobody get me wrong. I am by no means an atheist. Okay? Okay. Let's put it this way, to borrow a phrase that I got from Joseph Farrell. Not a phrase, a word. This is my phrase, his word. I don't have any trouble with a real Christianity. I have no use for churchianity. Okay. But none of this. See, and why am I saying this? It's because I think there's what authority figures condition us to think for their own reasons and purposes. And then there's what is real. And I think we'll find that we get lied to. We get lied to by politicians, right? Political leaders. We've been lied to by the various priesthoods, any religion, you name it. And so in consideration of that, when you're really honest with yourself, you have to say, wait a minute, this religious stuff I believe, it's because some guy told me to believe it. It's a big trust me bro scenario, okay? So stop and think about it. Fear is a huge part of that. And that's to keep us, I think, to keep us from thinking about these things too much. So you have to decide for yourself. Me, I don't think any of this contradicts, and good. If that was a good experience for you, I'm all for it, old Gaffer. I'm not against that at all. I'm just saying, to answer your question, I don't think any of this contradicts the essential real stuff. It certainly contradicts what you learn from various priesthoods, whether it be Christianity or any religion. Okay. I don't want to pick on Christianity because there are some other dumbass, rotten to the core religions out there. And I have no problem contradicting them. Philip Blair says watching the same movie over and over again is rather common among autistic people. When I was little, it was The Wizard of Oz. That's interesting, Philip Blair. Does watching Gilligan's Island repeatedly say something about...
It might say something about you, Walter.
Yeah. Or the Planet of the Apes movies. Oh my God, if they were on, I was watching them. Hey, if you haven't seen the new the new trailer for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. To me, it looks like a kind of a blend remix of Beneath the Planet of the Apes and Battle for the Planet of the Apes. Go back and look at the original movies. My son sent me the trailer last night. I'm not crazy about the new Apes films. They're okay. Crypto Alchemist says, oops, my question above should have been in caps. Oh,
I couldn't find it. I already looked.
Malia, look for it. Ask it again, Crypto, because we're not able to find it. Junkbank says, guilty pleasure time travel movie, Kate and Leopold. You know what? I haven't seen that one. I remember when it came out. That's Hugh Jackman. And is it, what's her name? Goldie Hawn's daughter? Hudson, Kate Hudson? Philip Blair again. Thomas was agnostic in the biblical Jesus story. I have never known a Christian priesthood where one in 12 was agnostic, like how Jesus chose. Okay, interesting observation. Yep. I think it's healthy to, look, if you're going to talk about an almighty being, why would an almighty being be an asshole like the guy discussed in this book, Yahoo Hui, also known as the Yahweh? I'm sorry, I can't reconcile the psychotic, narcissistic prick that Yahweh could display himself to be with an almighty being, all loving God. They're just not the same. They're not the same. One of them is a pretender, and Sir Walter Scott knew this. If you want to know how, he wrote about it most obviously in Robin Hood, when Prince John usurps the throne because King Richard the Lionheart is off fighting the Crusades. He's not there. So King John usurps the throne, and King John is an asshole. Interesting that he's not King Sam or King Reggie. He's King John with a J, which is, how Jehovah is spelt. Starts with a J, which is supposed to be kind of you get the idea. Essentially, I think Sir Walter Scott was saying that this Yahweh character was like Prince John, who's the evil ruler who usurps the throne. He's not the real king. And then the real king, of course, returns and whoops ass. So these are esoteric ideas embedded in classic literature.
Good comment.
Wait. Here we go.
Whoa.
Flying Brian asks, what kind of particle beam was that? Proton, antiproton, pseudo-neutron laser pump? I don't know. We will have to ask Lynn because it's a fascinating story. Michael Dark says, Cloud Atlas was also a great film. I remember when that came out. I saw glimpses of it, but I got to watch it.
That's Mike from Music.
Yes, I know. Michael Dark. Michael Dark, our pal who we hung out with at the NIMSACon. Flying Brian says, Cloud Atlas was interesting. Just missed being epic or great. Didn't quite work properly for me. Yeah, that's what I heard. Brian, is that it's kind of off. It's worth watching. Yes, Junk Banks. Thank you. You're right. It was Meg Ryan. Renee, what's that?
Don't skip. Go back. Go back to.
What did I miss?
Oregon Music. Get those ones.
Those are questions? I was looking for all caps, remember?
I know. But CT's a good comment.
Well, CT is referring to something that I often post, and it's a great scene from Star Trek V when Captain Kirk is the only one that has the balls and the presence of mind to ask the so-called God being, what does God need with a starship? And what happens to him? He gets smited. He gets zapped. How dare you question God? Well, he's clearly that the being wasn't God. Okay. And anyway, yeah, that's I gotta post that link again sometime. Miss Joni's side. Star Trek. I cannot even count or imagine how many times I've watched. That's right. That's right, Renee, Miss Joni's side. You can't watch the original Star Trek too much. It's just the way it is. Philip Blair, perhaps Yahweh comes from an ancient term meaning crazy jackass. It might as well. Joseph, crazy jackass. Oh, that has some personal relevance. The connection of Yahweh and the name jackass. Malia is grinning ear to ear.
Especially crazy jackass.
Yeah, exactly. Joseph Farrell has presented and discussed. In fact, he and Scott DeHart. Where is it?
You just have it.
Oh, how did it end up under there again? In this book, they talk about Yahweh is a title. It's not a proper name. It's like the Yahweh, the commander, the leader, that kind of thing. So that name, the ineffable, it's like, oh, you can't say it. Hypothetical here. If you were an almighty being and you did indeed create a creature allegedly in your image that you were proud of and that, you wanted to grow, and would you want them to be on their knees cowering in fear all the time? Think about it. How many of you out there are parents? Now, yeah, there's times when you want your kids to listen to you and to behave. But seriously, do you want your children every time they come to you to be head bowed, crawling on their knees, unable to look at you because you're so fucking amazing and powerful and fearful? No, I don't think you would. You would want your creation to stand up, shoulders back, head high. Okay. But, the priesthood, they got their stake in keeping us down. So they're the ones that come in and say, oh, that's pride. Oh, no, you're not supposed to. I'm sorry, folks, that trust me, bro, with your immortal soul and the realities of the universal truth, that trust me, bro approach, they can get out of town with that. I'm not buying that anymore. Old Gaffer says, I like Dr. Farrell's two-faced God. The Old Testament God never made sense to me. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm there. Now, to stay on the theme of tonight, think about it. These might be beings who can more readily move through time and space, and they're taking advantage of us in that way, too.
Both positive and negative. Both positive and negative.
Yes, positive and negative. Brian Remondini asks, Walter, are you familiar with Philip K. Dick's experience at the dentist? No, I will have to ask Tessa about that. Renee, Mrs. Johnny's side. In 85, I watched with my mom. We could share the experience. What movie was that? Oh, Star Trek. Okay. Renee, Mrs. Johnny's side says, I homeschooled my kids and it was promoted to ask questions. Exactly. Question things. Why would a all-powerful, loving being get pissed off just because you question something? That doesn't make sense to me.
Especially with a world full of questions and you are sent to seek the answers.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
I just see anyway. Rogue Status says, I'm late because it's a dad weekend. Good to see you. Hey, Rogue, how you doing? Well, enjoy your dad weekend. That's that's certainly more important than hanging out here at the Walter Bosley channel. I can tell you that. But thank you for being here. I appreciate it. So, oh boy, should I keep going? It's been an hour and 34 minutes. Brian Remondini says, please do. Is too much of a coincidence that two visionaries had similar experiences. Is it too much like the two visionaries? Wait, extrapolate what you mean by that. Clarify. I'm curious about your question.
book did you show? Did you show one?
I didn't show the front. You know. So now, if you guys haven't read NIMSA, How America Sold Its Soul, go to walterbosley.com. That's walterbosley.com for NIMSA, How America Sold Its Soul. You can get your copy of this very informative book, my latest. Let's see here. Oh, by the way, I've recorded 3 chapters of an upcoming audiobook. The audiobooks are happening. We're in the middle of recording the reading, and then we're going to get it all ready, and it'll be available. We're going through Audible, hopefully, right? Yeah. Philip Blair says, perhaps the high priest would not tolerate questions. Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure there was, a lot of that going on. And they would argue, well, they had a tough job. They had to keep people, behaving and in line and stuff to go here, do that, or whatever. Anyway, that wasn't the subject of. I didn't mean to go off on that tangent in response to a question, but it was a good question, because people do have their spiritual suspicions and beliefs and experiences and things that have helped them through tough points in life. So it means a lot to them. Okay. So there's also other things that are very fascinating. And look, folks, the other side of the coin is there are things that you should respect your fearful response to if you experience that. Okay. Because there is negative, there is evil, there are dark things out there that mean you harm. Okay. So not all the scary, dark things that religion talks about is just propaganda. Okay. The dark stuff is out there, and you do have to be careful with it. And there are some things best avoided. So I do think that. So it's natural for you to say, hey, how does this square with, Jesus or Buddha or whoever, It's a good question. And you have to decide for yourself, ultimately. Old Gaffer was going to ask about audiobooks. Yes, indeed, Old Gaffer. We're working on it. They're on the way. Old Gaffer's going to buy them all. Thank you. This is Old Gaffer. He's going to buy all of the audiobooks. Be Old Gaffer. Be just like him.
Just not hurting. But he gets better soon. He's hurting pretty bad.
Oh. Okay. Oh.
He told us earlier in the chat.
Philip Blair. See if you can also have them on Google Play Books. I checked both because sometimes Google Play Books have better price. It all depends on who protects the file better, Philip. And so far, Audible seems to have the best.
Google Play Books might work better. We might go with that one.
Do they protect the file?
Yes. Absolutely.
So.
Maybe easier to do.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, folks. You know what? It's been an hour and 40 minutes. An hour and 40 minutes is enough of Walter Bosley for anybody at one given time. And so before we... What's that?
Except Malia.
Yeah, poor Malia. She gets a lot more than 90 minutes a week. So, thank you all in the live chat for being here. And thank you all watching. the live. And again, if you're new to the Walter Bosley channel, this is kind of what we do here. We don't tell you what to think or we don't tell you what to believe. Think what you want, believe what you want. I just like to share.
Just let us know. Olav is on Ground Zero, Clyde Lewis tonight.
Oh, okay, cool. Wait a minute, wait a minute, Olav Phillips is on Ground Zero tonight. So check out Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis and Olav Phillips. Crypto Alchemist question disappeared. Did we ever find his question? Well, Crypto, I tried re-asking my question for. Oh, you know what? If your question, if what you were typing had too many characters, it deletes it. Remember, you have to stay within the character count. I've experienced that myself before too. I've been writing a very verbose question and discovered, after multiple times, it's because I'm busting the character count. So you got to keep it within that certain number. Is there what's the quick short way for you to ask your question real quick before we get out of here? 200 characters, no more, no less. That's right. That's right. I believe it was the dentist, Renee, Mrs. Johnny-Side says. That's the that was the Philip K. Dick question, right? Crypto? Was it you that asked? Well, thank you, old gaffer, for being here. Okay, folks, time for me to go. You're getting what?
I'm getting a link for.
Oh, Malia's going to post a link. Here we go. Crypto Alchemist asks, have you seen Ashton Forbes' MH370 Tic Tac UAP investigation? Interesting. No, I have not. Provide me with linkage, and I shall examine this information. Oh, I love this. Best evidence so far that Tic Tac is American technology. Oh, God, this is so... It's tragic what happened to that, but folks, the fact that more and more people are seeing that all along Tic Tac has been very human technology, likely our own. For some of us, it was obvious from the start. Okay. Malia has just posted the link to the Ground Zero show tonight with Olav Phillips, our associate in all things Nimzoid and Sonora and Tuolumne County. So go to that link on the screen. Go up there right now, copy it, paste it into your URL.
Brian is so your weirdest friend.
Brian is my weirdest friend. We're both. Yes, Crypto. Thank you. Brian says, I am Nomad. Oh, Nomad, the Nomad Star Trek episode. That was on last week. And Kirk, of course, outsmarts him because, he's Kirk. He's the Kirk. Brian says he's weirder by far. So, okay, folks, I hope you enjoyed tonight's little inaugural Friday night. I am going to have guests. again, doing the Friday night in addition to Wednesday. Wednesday is still the main live stream. But in addition to Wednesday, by adding the Friday nights, I can double my opportunities to have more guests, more interesting, continue to have additional interesting guests. And, like getting Joseph Farrell back on for Trans-Temporal Cosmic Warfare. It gives me an opportunity for more possible dates to schedule guests. And so hopefully I'll be having, 2 great shows a week instead of just one great show per week. And into timeout he goes.
I didn't know where that came from.
I have a feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, that's it for tonight, and we will see you on Wednesday. Remember, if you don't have your copy of NIMSA, How America Sold Its Soul, go to walterbosley.com, and you can find the link there. Go to walterbosley.com, where you can find all the Walter Bosley books.
Well, all the ones you've read.
Yeah, all the Walter Bosley books. And also, folks, I just received my subscription copy of the Adventures Unlimited Press catalog. If you guys haven't got your hands on these ever, they come out a couple of times a year. And this is from Adventures Unlimited Press, who I've been proud to be a friend of and associated with for, my gosh, 21 years now. And this is David Childress's company, and just good stuff. So check it out. I've been published in, I've had articles published in 2 issues of Wex magazine, and go check that out. So, okay, folks, I've been threatening to end the episode, and now I'm going to make good on that threat. They're saying, please, God, hurry up, end it. Okay, thanks again, folks. Appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.